Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining our SC Hangout, Secrets Management for Tactical Systems, Securing the Edge. Hope everyone is staying safe and healthy out there. Today, we have HashiCorp Senior Solutions Engineer Tim Olson presenting. Tim is going to discuss how to leverage HashiCorp's Vault and Consul to provide highly available, resilient, and secure access to tactical computing systems at the edge. I'd like to note that the webinar is being recorded and the recording will be made available after post-processing. I'll email it out to everyone, usually within a day or two. Please submit your questions throughout the presentation through the Zoom Q&A portal, and then we will answer them at the end. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. Take it away, Tim.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you everybody for joining our session today. Appreciate everybody's time and jumping in. So as Allison said, what we will plan on chatting about today is talking about some of the real challenges we have, especially on the military and tactical side of the house, is how do we secure the edge, right? How do we get mission applications up and operational in a secure fashion out towards the edge? And this is that whole enterprise to edge challenge. And we're really talking about some unique challenges, of course, as many folks on the phone are aware, from a DoD perspective and a tactical perspective, providing a secure edge environment to warfighters or assets that are out, at sea or in the air that may or may not come into connectivity is a real challenge. So what we want to talk about today is how can we help address and solve that challenge, right? How do we enable this tactical edge capability, especially when connectivity might be intermittent or not there at all? How do we provide a resilient solution that we can make sure that everything is still secured and really reduce the risk of compromise? And of course, things need to be easy to use, easy to deploy, and easy to stand up and run. So what we're going to talk about is really some of the key capabilities that HashiCorp Vault and Consul offer in this space. Now, there are several things else we'll talk about here around this, but we really want to talk about how we can leverage Vault and Consul to give this highly available, highly resilient, secure access, right? Especially out to the tactical edge. And some of the key technologies here, as we talk about Vault and Vault architecture, will be around Vault Agent, caching and templating, the capability of Vault to have a replicated or replication solution, and how we can actually leverage Consul when we're working in these distributed environments, especially across DoD and other tactical networks. So what does this look like, and how can we enable a very robust, secure, and operational environment that will take us from the enterprise to the edge? So let's jump in with a quick introduction here. Some of the things we do at HashiCorp for those who may not be as familiar with HashiCorp. So just real quick, want to jump into who we are and what we do and kind of position our conversation here when we talk about Vault and Consul. And really what we are about is helping enable this ability to deliver mission apps anywhere across the environment, from the physical environments where we are today, standing up on servers, standing up in an enterprise, running on VMs. And this could be across new environments. We're standing up perhaps applications that are being distributed across containers or a much more ephemeral or immutable type environment, even adopting serverless, and all the way out to the edge. And so how do we enable that rapid enterprise to edge application delivery that's done in a secure fashion and that's consistent, repeatable, and across the entire infrastructure? So what we're seeing is this ability to say, we have these four really key areas here that are things we run into when we're trying to stand up and solve this model, right? How do we deploy these mission apps that take you from the enterprise to the edge? And we really come across these four key areas. Well, how do we provision? We know how we can do it from a static perspective, a fixed perspective. We have enterprise data centers today, but as we adopt some of this dynamic capability here, we make this shift over to the side, over to the right, how do we provision across that entire infrastructure? How do we secure it? We go from a typical high trust environment where we have everything controlled, everything in the environment is a castle moat type of thing, into that whole low trust, zero identity or zero trust type environment in the dynamic world of the cloud. And then how do we solve the connectivity part of this? And this gets really interesting as the services spin up. You get much more of this dynamic ephemeral nature, but especially as services we're going to talk about today from a tactical perspective is you're going in and out of connectivity. You're going in and out of different theaters of operation. You may have folks on the ground or assets in the air or at sea as they're moving around the globe. How do we solve this connectivity problem in a much broader context? And then at the top here is how do we solve and address the ability to run? How do we orchestrate and schedule and manage this whole environment across this whole fleet of architecture? And it gets even more complex, right, as we go across the four challenges here. Now, we're trying to set up and deploy mission applications to take us from the enterprise data center and the enterprise environments all the way up to the edge. But our deployment area, right, our operational capability from a technology perspective is very different across each of these. So we're very familiar with what happens in our enterprise data center. You know, we use a lot of VMware perhaps, or VMs, and all the way up the hardware stack. But as we move to the right here, we get more into this, how do we stand up and run applications across the hybrid environment? We start bringing in dynamic capabilities around cloud, managed services, other types of things we want to be able to run to enhance our ability to deliver these mission capabilities. Right? And now we have the added complexity of each of these, whether you're running any of these environments, AWS, Azure, Google, any of these environments, they have their own stack of technology. So not only what's on the enterprise, but as we go into the hybrid cloud, each of those has its own stack, which gives even more complexity across how do we solve this enterprise to edge challenge. And this is really what we're about here at HashiCorp. So the idea is we fit right in these four challenge areas. Again, all the way from the enterprise to the edge. And as you see as we go through here, what we're really about is enabling that transition, enabling that ability to adopt this hybrid cloud model, you know, to be able to deliver mission apps across the spectrum whenever we need to. And this really starts with the idea of laying down that central shared service platform, right, or a single control plane type approach. And that goes across every aspect of these challenges, right? So starting with Terraform, which will help you have that infrastructure and deployment capability across any of these environments, on-prem, whether it's a managed service, whether it's Amazon, Azure, Oracle, any of these things, right? Across there, you can have a standard, repeatable, compliant, secure approach to how I want to stand up and manage my infrastructure. That's what Terraform provides. Vault, which we'll talk more about here as we go through, this lays that security control plane down. So how do I establish and manage my sensitive information across this dynamic world, across this hybrid solution where I could have applications, again, running anywhere from the enterprise to the edge. And we'll also be talking a little bit more about Consul here. And this is that ability to solve that connectivity problem. When we're in this hybrid cloud, when we're standing up these environments, we have mission applications we want to deploy. How do we solve the connectivity issue? Again, especially as things are ephemeral, things are moving in and out. We have people on the ground or assets that are moving across the globe, moving in and out of connectivity. How do we solve this networking problem? It becomes a really big challenge. And then Nomad for addressing the orchestration. What we'll be talking about today primarily is around Vault and Consul. So real quick, for those who are not familiar with Vault, as we talked about, Vault provides that central secrets management solution across this hybrid environment. So quite simply, Vault is a secrets management environment. Right? So this is what it was designed for. This is purposely built for. A secret being any sensitive information that, if exposed, it could open a vulnerability or lead to compromise or increased risk. So Vault introduces the capability to say, I want to manage that sensitive information. I want to be able to control it, manage it, and protect it across this hybrid environment. So Vault also offers some additional capabilities, provides encryption as a service because Vault by default encrypts what it does internally, and also it gives you capability to talk about advanced data protection. So we'll be focusing primarily on its secrets management capability today. So fundamentally, when we're talking about Vault, it's that hybrid multi-cloud secrets management solution. So you can enable now, as we go out and have these mission apps and different operational teams and development teams, to securely control really all your sensitive data. These could be tokens, certificates, encryption keys, passwords, whatever you have out there that you want to control in your enterprise to edge or enterprise to tactical environment. So we're used to having, our secrets kind of all over the place. We have a client out there. It could be an application. It could be a user. It could be a device. It could be a machine, whatever. I want to be able to go and access secrets on the back end here. And generally, credentials and data tend to be spread all over the place, commonly known as secret sprawl. And fundamentally, at a high level, the way Vault will enter in is now when I have a client, again, this could be a system, could be an application, could be a tactical edge device, could be an asset that's in motion. That client makes a request into Vault. Vault then authenticates who that client is to make sure they are who they say they are. It then associates any authorized policies of what you can and can't do with Vault, returns a token to the client. That client then uses that token to be able to access secrets on the Vault, within the Vault environment. So that's fundamentally how Vault works. One of the key aspects we're going to be talking about here that helps enable this ability to have this secure tactical edge solution is called a Vault agent. So this is part of Vault, and it provides some really key things. So fundamentally, Vault agent is a client-side daemon that runs. It provides the capability to auto-auth. So we talked about one of the first things you do is you authenticate into your Vault server, your Vault primary environment, to make sure that who I am who I say I am. And then we have a really nice feature here. This was really designed and built with the idea of edge or remote computing abilities. And that's this concept of Vault agent caching. So this is the ability to allow client-side caching of the transactions you do with Vault, tokens, secrets, things like that. We also have the capability to do what's called templating. So what this will enable the environments to be able to take some of these information that you're using with Vault, create a user-based or an application-based template that can be easily read for existing apps without modification. So this gives a very powerful environment. So if you look at how this sets up, this is your primary Vault cluster. We'll talk a little bit more about the architecture here in a minute. So again, on the client side here, you have an application, and then the agent runs here with the client. So the agent is doing the authentication to Vault. It writes the token, right, that we talked about into a local cache, or in Vault parlance, it's called a sink. So it maintains that token here locally, wherever that might be. Again, you'll see here as we go further, that could be an edge device or, again, an asset in motion or something. And now when an application needs to access a secret, it can go right to the Vault agent and process from there. So a little closer look here. Again, Vault agent caching was really designed for this edge application in mind. Here's the primary Vault cluster up here. This is the Vault client in blue. So if you have an application that's looking to access whatever backend or whatever secret environment you need to protect, it requests that token from Vault. The Vault agent is running here on the client side, and if it exists in the cache, it returns it immediately to the application. If not, the Vault agent will go out to the server, pull that information in, and then return that and cache the information. So this gives a really nice flexibility you'll see in action here when we go into the architecture of the tactical side. One of the other aspects that enables this enterprise to edge computing environment is Consul. So real quickly, Consul provides that service to service or cloud networking capability within this whole hybrid cloud environment. And as we talk about Consul here, what you're going to see some of the key things are this ability to do service registry and health, and the ability to handle what's called fundamentally a service mesh. That is what's called Consul Connect within Consul, but that's an ability to have that secure service to service traffic across different environments. So the way this looks is this hybrid cloud service to service networking environment. So again, what Consul, before Consul, everything was done through load balancers and firewalls and IP addresses, and every device had an application, again, whether it was in the enterprise or on the edge, and had to do all of the routing and all that stuff you had to do. With Consul, the whole idea is to introduce this concept of service to service interconnectivity and secure connection ability. So you have a Consul server that runs, and this is, again, configured within your environment. Then you have your applications. Again, these could be on the edge with a Consul agent. And now these agents will go out and do service discovery and service registry, so that in your tactical field of operation, whether you have a network that's out there, whether you're connected or not, Consul will track where those services are, whether those services are registered within the Consul server, and whether they're healthy. So this becomes a really interesting environment. You consider like Vault here running with some different applications. If you're in and out of a tactical situation, and you may or may not be connecting to different tactical networks, you may be connected to a different one that you weren't there when you started the mission. With Consul now, you have that ability to automatically discover and connect, some kind of ad hoc or mission dependent of where you are, and reestablish that connection and have a secure communication back and forth. So this is really that ability to have service registry and discovery across this network environment. And it could be, again, across multiple data centers, multiple platforms, multiple environments, depending on how you want to set up your architecture. And it's this idea of the mesh, that ability to have these different services. Now we're primarily talking Vault here, but overall, it gives that ability to have whatever your service might be running, to be able to detect that service, know if it's healthy, and then securely connect to it based on policies and intentions. One of the key aspects, again, is something we call Consul Connect. And what Consul Connect basically does is provide that service-to-service traffic connectivity that's done on, you pass search back and forth to make sure that you are who you say you are. Then whether you can or connect are dependent on the policies that you establish. And then once everything checks out and you're okay to go, you establish an encrypted, it's a TLS channel back and forth between the applications. And you'll see how this comes together in the architecture here with Vault connecting in to the network to be able to talk back to the primary Vault server. What's really nice, it gives you a lot of flexibility here with Consul Connect, this ability for either a sidecar proxy, so you can literally have an application that you already have existing, no modification necessary, establish a Consul Connect client that runs as a sidecar. So as far as the application is concerned, it's talking via the proxy back into the service network. So you can actually use mission applications that are deployed today without modification. And of course, it fully supports new integration with Connect if you're developing new web-based or cloud-based applications that you want to have a native connectivity with Consul and Vault. That's fully supported as well. So a lot of flexibility and capability as you look at the overall, not only securing your environment, but enabling that connectivity across this entire platform. So let's step back again and see how this applies to the architecture and to the problem at hand. So if we look at Vault, architecturally, we're going to use something called Vault Replication. So Vault Enterprise deploys as a highly available cluster. So when you stand up a Vault cluster, you generally have a, sorry about that, I keep moving, the slides aren't staying in place here. You generally deploy what's called a primary cluster. This is the primary source of truth. It's where you're managing all your secrets. Everything is in control. This is the primary cluster that Vault is managing your environment. So the primary cluster is generally in an enterprise data center. It could be in a command base. It could be at the Pentagon. It could be on a capital ship. It could be wherever is a standard base of operation. What Vault then does from an architectural perspective is it supports a concept called replication, or replicating out to a secondary environment. So from a tactical perspective, that secondary environment, often called a performance secondary, could be deployed, again, on any mobile command and control environment, whether it's airborne or whether it's on the ground. You can have a Vault secondary running there, and Vault replicates its information and the things that it's managing to that secondary environment. Again, the secondary environment could be any place in theater as necessary. From there, now that you've replicated over to the secondary environment, the Vault agent, that's what we talked about earlier, this is what's deployed on your tactical device. So this is at the edge. So you could, at the tactical edge, it could be a separate device. It could be a handheld device. It could be in a backpack. Could be on another asset, whether it's airborne or seaborne or wherever it happens to be. That could be running the local tactical edge-based mission. And so this part of it will talk to the secondary to get whatever secrets or authentication, all those kind of things that are going, which then syncs back with the primary Vault cluster, depending on where you have that located. So again, if we build this out even further with this architecture in mind, where you have the primary Vault cluster with secondaries and your agent out in the tactical space, now we expand this out and take advantage of the capability of Consul. So now we can use things like Consul and introduce that into this environment where Consul is running not only where the tactical devices are, right, where we have might be a handheld or might be in your backpack, could be a command and control system, it could even be back in the primary. We set up this environment now where Consul can run in a network, right? This could be the airport network, could be a tactical network, where Consul can now operate network-wide to be able to go out and register the services. In this case, we're talking Vault. So it can register the Vault environments, whether the Vault, you have the tactical edge environments are running on a device, that service can register to Consul. You can also go out and find what secondaries are available. So if you have an airborne asset that might be in theater while you deploy, maybe you go to another one later, Vault can go and discover those services and make the secured connection if necessary. So this really gives that very flexible ad hoc ability to say, I'm going to have a dynamic network that I can deploy across a tactical environment, which may or may not be available when I need it, depending on mission requirements and where I am. So it really gives you that capability now to leverage Consul and that ability to have that service-to-service connectivity. While Consul is out there automatically registering the services, it automatically knows which of those services are healthy, because Consul by default does health checks. So it knows that perhaps the secondary I initially talked to is no longer in range, but this other secondary is in range, and I can authorize to it and I can access it, and therefore connect and go. Right? So it gives you a lot of flexibility to expand that Vault architecture now across the network and use that dynamic capability to find services, know what it is and isn't healthy, and connect to them as required. So if we span this out and take a look at what's happening here, we have now both Vault and Consul in action. So again, if we look at how this will come together, if everything is active and everybody's connected, and we have a reliable or semi-reliable connection, right? We have our primary cluster that we talked about earlier. This is deployed potentially, again, it could be in a data center, it could be at the Pentagon, it could be in a base someplace, a capital ship, wherever. This is the primary source of truth where the primary Vault cluster is running. This replicates out to a secondary cluster. Again, it could be an airborne asset or other asset that's deployed out in the field. And again, here's our tactical edge. So the edge device to synchronize everything, does all the authentication, and it stores the information locally here in that Vault cache, right? This is that Vault agent. So I have my information that I need to run my tactical applications here on this device while securing that information in the field while I'm out on a mission, right? So this is all operational here, and when it's connected, these all sync up and everything's talking to each other and everything's working as it should. Again, this is used in Consul and Vault across that network. So now if we look at, again, if, like everything else, once we're in the field, things start deploying, things are out happening, perhaps we lose connectivity. Perhaps the secondary environment here is out of range of the primary base and can no longer talk. However, that because of the Vault caching and the ability to synchronize back to that cluster, the tactical device on the edge continues to operate. It does not shut down. It doesn't say, hey, I'm not connected, so I'm not running. I can now run with my cached information here that's still secure, still protected, and I'm still operational in the field. Now, this connection here between my tactical device and my secondary cluster, it may or may not be a stable connection. Again, it could be a semi-reliable connection where I have connectivity, or perhaps I'm moving from one environment to another, where I make a different connection to a different cluster. Either way, even if this connection goes away, my tactical edge device, my environment here, continues to operate. So again, this ensures access for my local apps on the edge, even if it's running in a totally disconnected or very unreliable environment. So this maintains that ability to say, I want to drive, I want to run, I want to have my mission apps still secured, still protected by Vault, regardless of whether I'm connected to the network or not. And this architecture is what helps drive that solution across your tactical space. So you can continue to operate, whether I'm connected to my secondary, whether I'm connected to my primary, I can continue to keep the mission moving forward. Should the environment change, right, where I'm back here at my primary cluster, perhaps my time to live expires. So everything in Vault has a TTL, a time to live, whether it's a token, whether it's a secret, any of those kind of environments, they all have a time to live. So perhaps my time to live expires, or perhaps somebody back here thinks that something's been compromised, I want to revoke this token or revoke the lease or whatever, I can now issue a new one, right? A different one. And now I have a new information or a new secret that I want to be able to propagate. So this can again replicate out to my connected secondary. So if I have an environment that's airborne or an environment that's in the field that's connected, that will replicate. But notice I have another secondary here that's not connected. So that continues to operate with the operational information that it had on deployment. So whatever that initial secret was, including at the edge, whatever that initial secret was, continues to operate, right? So even though I have done an update to a new secret here, which may have been replicated, if I'm not connected out here, or my device is not connected to either of these, I still continue to operate from a tactical perspective that's protected and secure. So this really gives a lot of capability to offer a resilient solution, right, that's highly available, that I can operate in a secure environment no matter whether I'm connected, and I can set this up so it automatically replicates as things come back online. So once I'm back in the network or I'm back connected again, right, the information will now propagate. So I have the primary cluster was updated with the new blue information here. That was propagated out to my secondary, which when my my edge device here got back into the network or was able to reconnect, it also synced back up with the cluster and got the new information back here to my mission device. So whether you're connected or not, whether it's semi-reliable or intermittent, this ability to have Vault and Consul and the ability to have this Vault agent capability to run continue to run within your tactical environment really gives you a lot of flexibility, a lot of capability to drive a secure solution, again, from the enterprise to the edge, whether you're connected or not, whether the mission requirements change and I move from one theater to another, I can still provide a tactical secured solution. Very flexible, very powerful. So really, again, we're back to saying Vault and Consul, providing that edge computing, that secure edge computing to warfighters. Whether, again, you're in the field, where you have a handheld device, or you have any other types of edge environment, whether you're deployed in another type of asset, airborne, seaborne, other type of field-based asset, in or out of connectivity. So whether or not I can maintain connection to the network, or whether it's intermittent or isolated, I can continue to run. I can continue to operate. I can continue to deliver secure mission applications at the edge without compromise. So it's resilient, it's secure against these environments. Vault is protecting the information there. It's still running its environment at the edge, whether or not I'm connected to the network. And again, it's easy to use. I can set up and run this environment, whether or not the mission apps are new. Maybe they're new cloud-based apps and I can run that in a cloud-native environment, or these are existing applications, which many of them are, and I can now easily integrate Vault and Consul into that operational environment with minimal impact and minimal change to my already existing mission applications. So very, very powerful and dynamic environment that allows you to really deliver that tactical edge, that secure tactical edge solution across your environment. And this uses both Vault as a secrets management platform, using the Vault agent capability and the Vault replication capability across your environment, ensuring that integrity, ensuring that your secrets and your sensitive information is protected. And then you can deploy Consul as well to be able to drive that interconnectivity, service-to-service level connectivity across a dynamic environment. So whether your assets are in or out of contact, whether they are healthy or not, you can use Consul to help track that. It should be mentioned that if you want to just deploy Vault, you can certainly do that and have a Vault environment. We already looked at the architecture with the primary cluster and the secondaries, et cetera. That still functions in that same environment. Consul gives you that added ability to have that dynamic mesh solution across a tactical network you may want to solve depending on what the mission requires. So that was it. That was a brief overview of the ability to potentially deliver secure tactical solutions out the edge. This encompasses both the enterprise to the edge at different layers, at different levels, at different capabilities, depending on what's required for the mission and what's required from a security posture standpoint. So thank you all for listening. I very much appreciate it.
Thanks, Tim. We're going to jump into the Q&A section now. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat or Q&A portion on Zoom. I do have a few to start. First, how does the Edge Vault agent authenticate with the primary cluster?
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so what that does is it uses a capability that the Vault agent has called auto auth or auto authentication. So the Vault agent will automatically authenticate into the Vault cluster when it first starts up. So the Vault agent will take that environment, the operational environment that it's doing, and performs what's called an auto auth into your existing Vault server or Vault environment. So yes, thank you for that. I should have mentioned that earlier. But that is that's one of the capabilities that's built into the Vault agent. So Vault auto auth, the caching, and the agent side templating.
Awesome. Okay, we're exploring implementing Vault with Kubernetes. Can you expand on how this same deployment would look like in a Kubernetes environment?
Sure. So from a high level, Vault is actually all the HashiCorp products, but Vault is of course very friendly and it really likes the Kubernetes type deployments. So there's a couple different ways to do this. You can use, there's something called a Vault Kubernetes authentication method. You can also use Vault injection that will help you inject secrets and information right into an operational pod, depending on how you stand this environment up. So you can do it either way. Both Vault Enterprise, a lot of the capabilities you talk here is Vault Enterprise. It does come with Helm chart support for the ability to rapidly do your builds within Kubernetes. But yes, Kubernetes is a very friendly environment for Vault, actually a very friendly environment across the whole stack. So whether you deploy on your mission apps, whether you're setting up in containers, even if you're running containers on a secondary, or even on the edge, if you're running containers out there, Vault very much supports and works with the Kubernetes clusters.
Great. How would you recommend setting up failover between multiple performance replicated clusters for the Vault agent?
So the Vault agent, so depending on how you set this up, the Vault environment, you'll like I say, you'll have a primary cluster, and by design, when you deploy a primary cluster, it is highly available by design. So it has resiliency built in with standbys and all those kind of things. You have the same type of approach when you do a secondary cluster. Now you can have multiple replication environments. So I can have my performance replication clusters in multiple areas. So I may have a field deployed base that's a replication cluster. I may have an airborne asset that's a replication cluster. I may have another type of field-borne asset, a Hummer or other type of environment that's also a replication cluster. All of those environments can be replicated off of your primary cluster. And all of them will act and handle transactions to existing Vault agents, assuming a couple things on the agent, depending on how you set your agent up. If you don't use Consul, because Consul can give you that dynamic mesh capability that can find those different secondaries depending on how you set your network up. But if you don't, you would have your Vault agent directed to or pointed to one or more of those secondaries that could handle those transactions. And depending on your mission, the mission parameters, and the scope, whether you're in field or what you may or may not want to talk to from a secondary perspective, you can control that from an agent on the agent side as to what it can and can't connect.
Okay. Are you able to share the slide deck after the session? We're going to show the recording, but I don't know if someone asked about the slide deck as well.
Oh, yes, we can certainly share the slides. Yes, I'll provide those to you, Allison, so you can post them with the recording. Not a problem. Happy to.
Cool. And then I still have other questions coming in. Okay.
Sure.
Does Vault work or integrate with on-premise resources like AutoSys?
On-premise resources like what was it?
AutoSys.
So everything we talked about here, a couple things on that. So everything we talked about here across the whole Hashi stack, as a matter of fact, but particularly with Vault and Consul, everything is open from an API perspective. So most of the like if you have an application that's talking to Vault, that's all done via API. Right? A lot of the connectivity from your Vault agent back to your cluster with the application talking to it, that's all done via API. So our suite of tools that we talked about earlier, that whole suite, Terraform, Vault, Consul, and Nomad, excuse me, they're all designed to integrate with other tools. So they're very complementary in how you approach this from a enterprise or an enterprise cloud solution. So yes, I don't know about the specific application that was asked there. Not that familiar with it, but the answer is these are designed to be integratable with multiple tools that you might have running in the data center, right? Again, everything's open via API, so we often will see most of these tools, hitting back and forth on the APIs, or you're building it into a build workflow if you're using like a Jenkins, or you got your version control system, you got your whole CI/CD pipe and all that kind of thing. It's all intended to work and complement together. So the answer is, in a general, yes. These are very integratable and very complementary to many of the tools that are already existent or maybe coming in the data center.
Cool. And I think last question, does this solution require Vault Enterprise and optionally Consul Enterprise?
So the answer to that is to support a replication environment. That is a Vault Enterprise capability. So to be able to stand up Vault, have a primary cluster, and then have your replication, your secondaries, that is enterprise capability. So Vault Enterprise does have additional features. It gives you like FIPS 140 compliance. And I should also mention that within a Vault Enterprise environment, you can use something called HashiCorp's Sentinel. So Sentinel is a policy as code solution that HashiCorp offers, which allows you to do exactly what it talks about. Everybody's familiar with infrastructure as code, but this is policy as code. So I can actually take and write and define policies from a codified perspective. So I can actually build that in to give you even more capability and more guardrails around what you can and can't do from a secrets management perspective. So Vault Enterprise also will support something called a namespace, which could be a very powerful capability within this architecture that we're talking about here. So namespaces are basically vaults within a vault. So I can actually have an operational environment that may be supporting one particular mission, an operational environment that's supporting a whole different group or a whole different mission, all exist within my primary cluster, but they are actually separate from a vault perspective. They are separate namespaces or separate environments, multi-tenanted environments within Vault. So that gives you a lot of power and flexibility about how I want to set up and deploy my infrastructure across this dynamic environment. Now, there are other capabilities too within Vault Enterprise that we can go into in more detail in a different session. But yes, the basic fundamental replication capability is a Vault Enterprise perspective. From a Consul perspective, the basic, what we're talking about there with the connectivity and the mesh and to have the sidecar proxies and those things, that is available in Consul open source. One of the things you might want to consider when you're standing up these environments and why Consul Enterprise would be important is the ability to have things like you'll be able to auto backup and auto update, to be able to support a federated environment. In other words, have a multi-data center, multi-platform environment where I want all these data centers to be able to interconnect and communicate. That is a Consul Enterprise type solution, as well as Sentinel. Sentinel is available across all of our enterprise products. So I can actually write policies based on networking capabilities with Consul. So Consul Enterprise will give you those kind of capabilities along with segmentation, and namespaces are actually available in Consul Enterprise as well. So lots of capability there that when you're setting up a solution like this across this type of a theater, which can be pretty broad. Again, I highly recommend enterprise-based solutions.
Okay, I got like a 3-point question while you were answering. So
question. Okay.
I'll just ask them out loud. How does Terraform integrate with Helm? Secondly, how are Vault secrets coordinated across both Terraform and Helm? And then I think you can wrap it up with, where are documents and info on policy as code?
Oh, okay. So from Terraform and Helm, there's no, today, there's not a specific Helm deployment methodology via Terraform. Terraform will generally talk directly into and deploy directly into native Kubernetes or native Kubernetes-based services that may or may not be offered within the different cloud providers or on-prem or whatever you're running. So in general, the Terraform will use those provider capabilities to deploy within a Kubernetes-based environment. So it's usually much more flexible, and it's much more infrastructure as code-based when you can do that. So there is lots of information on the site for Terraform with the different provider support, different Kubernetes, OpenShift, all those kind of different platforms, depending what you want to have, that Terraform will support across that environment. Now, you can kick off different types of workflows, like if you're using a CI/CD build pipe or something like that, that can kick off a Helm build using Vault and that environment. So that is also supported. Again, it integrates with these tools, so it's very flexible depending on how you want to set the environment up. And we have different customers doing it different ways. Right? Well, they have Terraform stand up the infrastructure as needed and have the environment available, the Kubernetes service, et cetera, and then use Helm to deploy different types of workloads depending on what's required within the actual Kubernetes environment. So for Vault Secrets, basically what happens there is Terraform can absolutely integrates directly into Vault. So Terraform can call into Vault during a provisioning process and actually pull secrets out of it and inject that into your environment. So if you were standing up a container or standing up a VM, for example, a common thing is, how do I get my my initial secret 0? How do I get that instantiated into my operational environment? So you will use something called an app role within Vault, but I want to have my initial secret, so I can do that using Terraform. So I can actually inject a secret into the VM as I stand it up and use an app role off method, which will go out and use what the embedded secret is in order to have that initial stand up and go. Right. So Terraform also not only can work with Vault, directly and calling Vault, pulling a secret out, and then you're using it to stand up infrastructure. But Terraform also has a Vault provider. So Terraform can actually stand up and deploy Vault. So if I stand up my initial environment, I have Vault, but I want to stand up maybe a new secrets engine or maybe a new auth engine or something like that, I can actually use Terraform to go out and put up or build a new secrets engine inside Vault that's already deployed. So again, you have a very standardized approach that's consistent, repeatable. It also has Sentinel, so I can make sure that everything is being done within compliant environments across an infrastructure as code workflow. And that, again, lots of power, lots of flexibility there. So with Helm, again, so what will happen there is usually Vault will, when you're building up the Helm and you have the pipeline there, you can either inject it with Terraform or actually use it with a Vault call to use the auto-auth to do the initial secret 0 problem as you're standing up and deploying your cluster. Right? So it's really going to be an up to you, and I hate to almost say it, but IT answer number one, it depends. So it's going to depend on your deployable environment and the architecture that you're trying to stand up. And by the way, you can do both. So the documentation for Sentinel is out on the website. So it's if you just go out on HashiCorp.com and search for Sentinel, you'll find the link. It's a very powerful environment. Allows you to really establish that policy as code and have a compliant methodology, right? So I can really build it in across my entire suite of products. So I can have compliant infrastructure as I stand that up. I can have a compliant secrets management environment, Consul as well, and even Nomad, right? So really, really, really powerful environment. Matter of fact, we see a lot of DoD clients that we talk to look at Sentinel and say, this really gives that ability to take and have a DevSecOps approach. Because now, not only do my developers and my operational folks work together to give me a much more agile, flexible environment, but I can bring my security team in as well. So my security team can help me define and write these policies that are known, and I can build them into the workflow. I can't get around them. They're built into the workflow. Now become a DevSecOps team. So my policies are defined by my security team. They can help write them, and then all the auditing trails afterwards can show that the actual infrastructure or the secrets, whatever I'm doing, is compliant. Very, very powerful environment.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your expertise, Tim. As I mentioned in the beginning, this session was recorded, and we will make the recording available on our website after processing. I'll also send an email to everyone who registered with that recording link. I hope you all enjoyed today's webinar and have a better understanding of Vault and Consul. that wraps things up for us. So have a great rest of your day. Bye.